Welcome back, y'all. Hope you've ridden today or you're gonna go for a bike ride after this video. But in the meantime, while you're joining me, today I'm gonna talk about the Redshift top shelf gravel bars. Now you may be wondering, why do I have these bars when my channel is all about budget parts? And I've mentioned this before in previous videos. There are a few things that I will never compromise in regards to price. One is gonna be a saddle, two, cycling shoes, three, bib shorts, and fourth one will be any handlebar system, because that's a main point of contact where you're controlling the bike. And to me, it's not worth compromising just to save a few bucks where my hands are extremely uncomfortable. So if you're new here, the bike that I ride gravel with is a converted Specialized Crossroads Cruise that was a hybrid bike from the early 90s, and I slapped some drop bars, did a few tweaks here and there, and it is my dedicated gravel bike. However, the root cause as to why I even found these bars in the first place is because there is such a huge issue with converting vintage 90s mountain bikes and hybrid bikes to a gravel bike. That being the extremely long top tubes and the crazy low stack height. Now I get it, when they designed these bikes back in the day, they never designed them around drop bars, and it was only flat bars with a pretty extreme rise in the stem. So I can't knock the companies in the past designing around that. However, if we want to keep these from ending up in a dump somewhere and going to waste, this is the best way to actually bring them to the modern age. Again though, the biggest issue that's popping up for me is this extremely long top tube, and it's making the reach pretty drastic. And let me show you an example real fast. So this is my Paik Rum Runner fixed gear, and this frame has been designed in the modern age, has modern geometry. But the top tube length that I personally like to use is around 55 to 56 centimeters. And let me show you here. So about center to center on the top tube is 55 centimeters. And then roughly the seat tube from center to center is about 52, 53 centimeters. However, I don't like measuring via the seat tube because the reach is the most important thing. And that's why I personally use top tube measurements to judge if a bike is gonna fit or not. Let me show you my wife's bike and show you the example of why the older bikes, even with the smaller frames, have a very long reach. So this is my wife's mint condition Peugeot Dune, and check out the seat tube. It's only about 44 to 45 centimeters. However, the top tube is at 56 centimeters. Technically that would work for me, but this is so low that it would look really goofy if I tried to ride this bike. But still, it can be done with an extremely long seat post, and I've seen builds like that, so even though it looks goofy, that's the thing with these conversions. They're in an alternate category for gravel bikes. All right, now check out the Crossroads Cruise. So the seat tube is roughly 54 centimeters. This top tube is at 60 centimeters center to center, and that is extremely far. Now what I have done to adapt to this frame is putting a lot shorter of a stem on here. So it's gonna be 80 millimeters when usually I'll ride 110 to about 130 at times. And bringing up stack height again, I tried slamming this and it was even more uncomfortable. So I fitted these spacers onto the quill stem to threadless stem adapter, and it raised it up pretty good, but still the reach and the low stack height is still getting to me at times. Now you may be asking, if you have that many spacers under the stem, why don't you just add more and raise it even more? Well, the thing is, I have kind of the same thing with this combo. The quill stem adapter that I do use is from Origin 8, and I have spacers already on it, and the minimum insertion point is actually under the spacer, so I really can't extend it any further. Now they do make quill stem adapters that are a lot longer, but at that point it's just too long. I don't like the look of it, and I like a little bit of rise, but not too much, because you might as well just get flat bars at that point. And realistically, I can only ride for maybe an hour and a half. If you ask me to ride for 2 hours or more, I simply can't do it on this build. Now I know there's other gravel drop bars that are at a lower cost, but still, if it connects here and this is as high as the bars are gonna go, even with some of them that do sweep upward, I still wouldn't achieve the height that I want on the tops of the bars and also a shallow drop. So all the options that I was finding out online, there's a compromise with either the tops or the drops. So I reached out to Redshift explaining the situation and how I'm actually interested in reviewing these bars. and they generously sent me the bars, and they also sent a set of really long bar tape and the cruise control drop bar system, and I didn't even request to review these, so I really do thank Redshift for sending these. And for this review, they have not seen this video yet, nor have they told me to say anything. This is all my experience and opinion. If you're doing these conversions, you put a lot of time and effort, you put all the parts on, bought potential parts specifically for the bike, and you're this far into the build, the last thing that you want to run into is reach the very end where you're just almost finished, and turns out this one thing, the bars, due to the stack height and the long top tube length on these vintage bikes, keeps you from enjoying the build and riding comfortably. So I feel like that's one point why it would be justified to purchasing these bars, because it would cost you more time and money to then give up, part the bike out, sell the parts, hunt for another bike, and then start all over where you get the bike, gotta clean it up, inspect all the parts, etc. All right, so enough chatting. I'm gonna get these bars installed right now. Here's a closer look on how I routed the bar end shifter housing and the brake cable housing. All right, now that I got all the tape off, let me put this in the stand. All right, finally got my bars off the bike, and compared to the top shelf, obviously you can see it's a lot more narrow, but there's no flare to it, and the drops are a lot shallow on the top shelf. Let me do a quick montage comparing them. Now I want to showcase real quick the older style shifters, because as we know, these bars are meant for shifters that create a very flat surface on the top, and the older shifters have more of a curve because bars were different back then. So let me show you this real quick, how they look. And honestly, I feel like they can work. If I had an 8-speed drivetrain, I think I would probably slap these on no problem and be fine with it. All right, so it is the next day, and I took the time to putting the Tektro RL340 brake levers on the bars. And I'll tell you what, the setup was actually really easy. On the sides, they do have these dots where you can use to put the brake levers where you want them. So that's actually really convenient. On my Pro drop bars, the markings are in front, and usually the brake hoods cover them, so they're actually kind of hard to use for measurements and to get them even. And then also, Redshift did put markings where you would actually start the bar wrap, where you can also put the drop grips on as well. There's actually a few reasons why I'm not going to put the cruise control drop grip system on this particular build for now, because first off, I'm doing bar end shifters. I have to route the housing around the bars if I want to have an integrated look, rather than having the housing come out like the traditional way. So that's going to interfere with the drop grips and also with the top grips, which these do actually feel really comfortable just lining them up like that. I'm still experimenting with everything in regards to the shifting system, and I actually might have STI shifters that I'm gonna slap on here. So I'm not gonna officially put these on just yet, but I definitely will get to them. All right, now to officially put these bars on my bike, And also I wanted to mention, even though I think the Tektro brakes are pretty decent in regards to modern bar shapes, my opinion is they don't really fit the best on compact drop bars. However, on these bars, they actually fit way better than my Pro drop bars. And the shape feels way more seamless, and I think it's due to this traditional curve. But that's what's good too, is I put more modern shaped STI shifters, and the flats transitioning to the hoods are perfect. But again, I'm gonna replace these real soon with something else. Oh yeah, this feels so good. I sat on it just real quick and it has drastically improved the feel of this. I love that it's wider than my previous bars I had on here, and the drops are not as deep, because sometimes in gravel, being on the tops is more comfortable, especially when it's super bumpy. But since these are wider, I know I'll have more control. And if I wanted a little more leverage, but don't want to have this ridiculously aero position that's uncomfortable, the shallow drops are gonna help quite a bit. And I seriously love the look of these bars. I think they're so fitting, and because they're alt bars, I feel like it definitely complements this alt gravel build. So since these bars are a lot wider, I have to extend the brake cable and housing, and what was on here before was pretty narrow, so I knew that I didn't have enough length. Luckily, when I'm running the brake cable housing, I do incorporate an inline barrel adjuster. So I have a few different cable housing lengths that go from the barrel adjuster to the cable stop for the cantilever brakes. And that's the thing too, I have to incorporate an inline barrel adjuster because cantilever brakes usually were set up with mountain bike brakes, and those had barrel adjusters on there, but the Tektro brakes does not. And just eyeballing it, I knew my original brake cable is not gonna be long enough. Luckily, I have some replacements, so I'm gonna put those in there. I have a little extra rear brake cable housing, just so it doesn't bind when I turn the handlebars to the right. So since I'm still doing a bar end shifter on this setup, I want to wire the housing around the bars and then outward so it has a much cleaner look. So since the bars are a lot wider and sit higher, I knew I'm gonna need an extra long shifter cable. Therefore, I was able to get a really long tandem shifter cable, and that's how you can overcome the length of shifter cables while wiring it under the bar wrap the entire way. All right, so since I got the brakes all set up, I'm gonna go for a little test ride before I start wiring the shifter cable and routing the housing, just in case if I need to change this angle. So I'm gonna do some faux shifts, even though I'm gonna be in top gear, but I cannot wait. I'm gonna go right now. Oh my goodness, that was insanely good. I cannot get over that. I didn't even shift yet, but just the overall feel riding this thing is incredible. I think what I'm digging obviously is gonna be it raised the tops a lot higher. And in fact, it being wider feels even more comfortable. The angle from the brake levers, because of the flare, feels amazing. On top of that, when I aligned the bar end shifter with the flare of the bars, I think that actually feels a lot better than what I had before, where it was just straight up and down, because shifting to the highest gear, having this so far forward, it was kind of hard to pull under. So since this is at a better angle, I have a little bit better grip to pull from the high gears, switching to the lower gears. Another detail too with these bars is the drops are extended a lot further out, and they're completely flat. They're not curved like my compact drop bars, which I just don't like. That's why I like traditional drop bars, because of having this flat section. And it goes back so far that it makes reaching the bar end shifter super comfortable. And I probably could extend the stem a little bit further, but I like to be more upright with my gravel riding out here because the gravel roads are seriously rough. So now I'm gonna wire the shifter cable and get this thing really going. All right, next I'm gonna thread the shifter cable through the bar end shifter, through the housing, tape the housing and route it, and then begin the bar tape, which again, I do appreciate and thank Redshift for sending me the really long bar tape. And I'm gonna see if one covers both sides or just one side. I suspect one roll is gonna cover one side just because the bars are a lot wider. While taping the housing on the bottom, putting the first strip, I always like to start from the width of the bar tape. That way I can do one loop under and then begin to start wrapping the bar tape up. Whew, it's like 95 degrees out here in Florida right now. Finished with the bar end housing integrated routing, so I could just wrap the bar tape and it'll look a little bit cleaner. Again, you see that there's a lot of extra tape here to route the cable housing. That's the reason I'm not gonna put the cruise control grips just yet on the setup. Again, I'm gonna ride this a little bit and then swap these out for some shifters in the near future. But this is how it's going to be routed. And now, time to connect the shifter cable to the rear derailleur and then finish up with the bar tape. All right, so it looks like I have such an excess amount of cable. So I'm gonna cut this, and I opted for the tandem cable length because I really didn't wanna mess this up when I was building this. And I didn't know if the bars were gonna be a little too wide for the cable I already had. So better safe than sorry, so I can actually complete this project. You know, I've seen a lot of talk online where folks have discussed routing the actual housing from the bar end shifter, the entirety of the drop bars and then outward, causes the shifting to be extremely stiff. And I don't know if it's because of older shifter cables, different derailleurs back in the day, but with these modern components, it actually still is really smooth and I don't see any issues with stiffness. So I think that's probably the contributing factor where folks have been used to it being stiff. But I can definitely testify that this is actually really smooth and easy to operate. Okay, now for another test ride. All right, I think I am done. I've been doing so many test rides, enjoying it thoroughly. It feels just so much different. It's crazy. Something I wanted to test real quick before I do the bar wrap is the mounts that I can put on here. And with the top shelf, I can literally put a light on here and also my phone. Obviously it's not in here, but that is crazy cool. I mean, this thing looks rugged, like apocalyptic rugged. Again, I'm gonna swap out the brake levers for some shifters in the near future, so that's why I'm gonna reuse it. But also with the really long bar tape that they did send me, they come with finishing strips that actually match the texture of the bar tape, so that's a really nice detail. And on top of that, they come with bar end caps that are really nice quality. Obviously, I have the bar end shifter on my right side, so I'm gonna install just one on the left side. All right, install complete. Now this is gonna be a semi-temporary build. And the reason being is I do have some parts that I wanna swap here and there. So I wanna have access to my brake cables and shifter cable. That's why I haven't capped them yet. And I just put hockey tape just as a temporary fix. But also there is a catch with this video, and that catch is you're gonna have to stay subscribed and check out my part 2 that will be coming in the near future of my official long-term review of these bars. So if you've made it this far, I really do thank you for joining me, watching my video, and liking and commenting. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the comments below. But as always, I'll catch you in the next video.